How difficult is it to actually get into Canada or the United States? And could you do it? Like, actually. Today's video, I read from a chapter of my book, Immigrating to Canada versus the USA. In it, we go over the easiest options to get into either country, whether you qualify with your current abilities, and who really has the best chance of becoming a citizen. Let's jump in with an immigrant's story.
Keone's story, Toronto, Ontario. My phone's alarm buzzes. It's an early morning in late November, according to the calendar. It is officially still autumn. Fall. But the weather will remain this shade of grey from now till spring. Really, this is just winter, the extended edition. You can't tell the day has begun because I'm living in a basement suite that doesn't really get any sunshine. It's a living arrangement that just keeps out enough cold to not let me freeze to death, but maintains a level of damn cold that is only a comfortable temperature for zombies. Did I mention that I pay over half of my income for the privilege to call it home? I pull the duvet covers over my head and wish to never leave this bed. I've been in this country 6 months, but still sleep on a mattress on the ground. There is never enough time to get an actual bed on the weekend because there is never a real weekend when you are working 65 hours a week. My phone alarm buzzes. Again. Finally, I muster the courage to get out from under the covers. In my even colder bathroom, I stand on a mat that's too thin to keep my feet warm. As I move my toothbrush across my mouth, my brain goes back to home. Red soil, the never-ending sun, the smell of dried grass, and the scent of smoke from an open outdoor fire somewhere. That place seems a world away, and centuries past. Even the immigration fair I went to just over 2 years ago seems like a hazy memory. But I was so desperate to leave Kenya that I was willing to clean toilets to get out of here. So when the immigration agent asked me how quickly I wanted to leave, I said anything to get me onto Canadian soil ASAP. Armed with a closed work permit, I stepped onto Canadian soil, anticipating a promising future. I started a job, with dreams of a maple leaf on my passport one day. Little did I know, the workplace harbored a storm in the guise of a boss, Mr. Henderson, a terror in a tailored suit. At first I dismissed the subtle warning signs, the relentless demands, the unreasonable deadlines, and the constant pressure to go beyond the scope of the job description. Late nights at the office became routine. Weekends vanished into thin air, while the dreams of a better life seemed to slip through my fingers. I felt utterly trapped by this job that was supposed to be my ticket out of Africa. Mr. Henderson dangles the closed work permit in a competitive marketplace over my head. Cleaning 1 million toilets would be a welcomed reprieve. Caught in a web of uncertainty, I brush my teeth back and forth, like some sort of meditation and prayer. Anything to delay going back into that office, while toothpaste foams out of my mouth. Tears start streaming down my face. I can't stop them. I keep asking myself the question, is it worth enduring this torment for the sake of the Canadian dream? Or is it time to admit defeat, pack my bags, and return to the familiarity of Kenya? Immigration options. Immigration can be a nightmare. Sometimes the desire to get into the country through any means possible seems to be the chant of all immigrants, because in the end, it will all be worth it. But there is definitely a hierarchy of immigration avenues, some which offer immigrants more flexibility than others, while other options require way more resources than others to obtain, and others are quite frankly a case of indentured servitude for the trade of getting to live in the country. The best thing you can do is to try and find the option that best meets your needs. At worst, you're going through a rough few years meandering through immigration consultant mazes and working a terrible beginner job. Well, the actual worst case scenario is that you don't get to immigrate. In the actual worst case, you are deported. Unfortunately, it can mean grinning and bearing it in a tough work situation while you count down the days till permanent residency heaven. You will also find that the US and Canada have varying routes to citizenship. At a very high level, I outlined some of the immigration avenues of each country. Please note, I didn't summarize every visa option out there because that would be its own book. Heck, a petite Bible even. A very complicated one, with lots of laws. So if need be, speak to an immigration lawyer or consultant to see what options best suits you. Do not rely solely on this book. The pathways that have been described are general and could change. Consider yourself legally disclaimed. Canada's immigration options. The express entry system. Starting your journey to Canada via the express entry system is like making points in an intense video game where your stakes are the life and the points you garner means you win at getting to immigrate. Considering the last video game I played was Age of Empires, let's see how this whole analogy holds up. 3 programs are hosted under the express entry system. They are Federal Skilled Worker Program, FSWP. This program is designed for skilled workers with foreign work experience who intend to immigrate to Canada. Federal Skilled Trades Program, FSTP. This program is for skilled tradespersons who have work experience in an eligible skilled trade and want to become permanent residents. Canadian Experience Class, CEC. This program is for individuals with Canadian work experience who wish to transition to permanent residence. The express entry game is played out at a national level. The game awards points as you create your character. Immigration profile. Provide information about your age. The highest score is in your 20s or early 30s, decreasing with greater age. Education. Professional designation, master's levels and above scores highest. Employment history, and language proficiency. This competition for a higher score and better prospects for advancement results in a competitive environment. Next, your character enters the Express Entry Pool, a queue where profiles are eager to move forward. The Canadian government, which also serves as the game's organizer, holds draws on a regular basis to choose the characters who score the highest to advance to the next level. The Canadian government, which also serves as the game's organizer, holds draws on a regular basis to choose the characters who score the highest to advance to the next level. If your character gets selected in a draw, congratulations! You now receive an invitation to apply. It's like receiving a special invitation to move forward in the game. To move forward in the game, you turn in documents at each checkpoint, which serves as evidence of your training and expertise. Because nobody likes someone who tries to cheat at the game. Next, a health and background check ensures that your character is fit and that your record is spotless. Your avatar has to reflect reality. This is necessary before you enter Canada. If successful, your character gets permanent residency, PR, in Canada. And that's the beginning of the process of citizenship and how you eventually win the game. And considering that this is a dynamic game, there are ways to level up your chances of getting into the country. Obtain a higher education level. To get extra points, finish your PhD or master's degree. Like, this is some easy feat. I say is like wipe tears away from laughter. Improve your score on language tests. TEF for French, CELPIP for English, or I for English. Language proficiency testing is something that most Canadian-born Canadians would fail at, but a daunting hoop that you as an immigrant must jump through. Make sure to look up YouTube tutorials and practice tests. For the love of all things decent, do not try to wing it. Obtain further work experience. Obtain a legitimate employment offer from a Canadian company. If you are asked to pay for a job, this is a scam. Run. But there are some legitimate programs that will have you pay for training and reimburse you after you continued the job for a set period of time. The aforementioned indentured servitude. Look into a provincial nomination program, PNPs, in Canada to receive a nomination from a province. To receive a nomination from a province and match your qualifications with jobs that are in demand. More details to follow. Consult with an immigration consultant and lawyer. Speak with these experts to learn about the positive and negative aspects of your profile and to receive specific guidance. Double check that they're the real deal, that they are legitimate and have a registered number with the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants. Link below. Now, while this national game is in play, you can also play another version of the game. The end result of getting into Canada is the same, but you will drill down more specifically into a province that you would have to meet all the requirements for through the Provincial Nominee Program. Provincial Nominee Programs, PNPs. Each Canadian province and territory has its own PNP, allowing them to nominate immigrants with specific skills meeting labor market needs or experiences for permanent residence. Each province and territory has one, except Quebec has its own system. Oui, but of course. Some PNPs are aligned with the Federal Express Entry System, meaning they allow provinces to nominate candidates who are already in the Express Entry pool. This is akin to playing the game at the national level, and while there is some quiet time, you can duck into another provincial game and play there, building up scores simultaneously. Provinces that have PNP aligned with the Express Entry systems are Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, Ontario, Prince Edward Island, Saskatchewan, and Yukon. Also note, you may have some immigration streams in these provinces that are still not aligned with the express entry stream. Sorry, I did say this would be complicated. While some other provinces have streams outside of the express entry program. It's like playing the same game but in a parallel universe, where neither player avatars knows of the other's existence. Those who have a PNP outside of the express entry are Northwest Territories and Quebec. Occupation-specific streams. Many PNPs have streams targeting specific occupations or sectors facing shortages in the respective province or territory. Check out the occupations for each province you are interested in by some Googling. Entrepreneur and investor streams. And if you have money, Canada will open its doors to you, as long as you're willing to open your purse strings, or whatever cryptocurrency is being held in there these days. Some PNPs have streams for entrepreneurs and investors who want to establish or invest in businesses. Family reunification. Canada places a strong emphasis on family reunification. Canadian citizens and permanent residents can sponsor close family members for immigration. This is great news if you have a family leaving. This is great news if you have family legally living in Canada, but completely useless if you don't. Humanitarian and refugee pathways. Canada is well known for its welcoming approach to refugees and asylum seekers. The country has a well-established system for refugee resettlement. This has been very popular under the Trudeau administration, but my bets are on this shifting if the Conservatives eventually come back to power. Student-to-pathway citizenship. Up until January 2024, Canada was actually very open to students becoming citizens and had a built-in journey with permits. However, there has been some shifts in this regard to the Post-Graduation Work Permit, PGWP. In 2024, the cap is expected to result in around 360,000 approved study permits, a 35% decrease from 2023. The current political shift favors public universities/colleges over private ones, of which some were essentially glorified education puppy mills, the media's words, not mine. More so, each province will be affected differently as the caps on students will vary. But the new ruling also offers graduates of master's and other short-term graduate level programs eligibility to apply for a 3-year work permit, which is actually a bit of an improvement, as the duration of the PGWP used to be equal to the duration of your studies in Canada up to a maximum of 3 years. The PGWP grants international students an open work permit, allowing them to work for any employer and in any occupation of their choice. Another change is that the spouses of international students pursuing master's or doctoral degrees will be eligible for open work permits, but not undergraduate programs. So this is how it looks. You pick your program, choose a Canadian school and program you like. Make sure it's one that qualifies for the post-grad work permit. It is a designated learning institute and not an undergrad program. Apply and get in. You apply to the school, get accepted, and grab that acceptance letter. Student visa. You apply for the student visa with your acceptance letter. You show the cash. You prove you've got the money to cover tuition and living costs. Background checks, you'll need a police check and a medical exam. Study and work. You work part-time if you can to help with expenses. Post-grad work permit. After you graduate, you might qualify for a work permit. Permanent residency. If you want to stay, your time as a student can help with permanent residency. Open versus closed work permits. There are 2 different types of work permits, open and closed, each with different implications for employment. A holder of an open work permit can work in Canada for any employer. That is, it is not job-specific. This flexibility will be particularly useful to foreign students, spouses, or common law partners of skilled workers, graduates of specific Canadian programs, and refugees. Since the open work permits aren't linked to any particular job or employer, their holders are free to explore other employment options. However, an employment-specific or closed work permit limits the holder's ability to work in Canada to that specific employer. Usually, before awarding this type of permit, an employer must demonstrate that a foreign worker is required to fill a particular job position. When an employer wants to obtain a closed work permit, they frequently have to go through the Labour Market Impact Assessment, LMIA, process to make sure that hiring a foreign worker won't negatively affect the local job market. Path to Canadian citizenship. After becoming a permanent resident, individuals can apply for Canadian citizenship after a specific period of time. You and some minors must have been physically in Canada for at least 1,095 days, 3 years, during the 5 years before the date you sign the application. Immigration Canada encourages you to apply with more than 1,095 days of living in Canada in case there's a problem with the calculation. Following that, candidates must gather supporting documents such as utility bills, tax documents, and employment records to demonstrate their time in Canada. The next important step is proving language proficiency in either French or English, as applicants must pass a language test to demonstrate their ability to communicate effectively in one of Canada's official languages. Furthermore, candidates must pass the Citizenship Knowledge Test, which assesses their understanding of Canadian history, values, institutions, symbols, and citizenship rights and responsibilities. After satisfying those requirements, candidates can submit their citizenship application along with the necessary forms and fees. Once the application is received, immigration officials thoroughly review it, including a background check and verification of the proved information. Candidates who pass the assessment are invited to a citizenship ceremony, where they take the oath of citizenship to dear old King Charles. That kind of still feels weird to say, and officially become Canadian citizens. Yay! United States immigration options. Visa categories. The USA has a complex system of visas, including family sponsorship, employment-based diversity lottery, and humanitarian categories. The US issues green cards, permanent residence, to immigrants, and there are various routes to obtain them, including family sponsorship, employment, and the diversity lottery. In no ways could I capture all the different visas and scenarios, but here are a few. Family-sponsored visas. Citizens of the United States may sponsor immediate family members for immigration. Parents, siblings, children, and spouses are all included in this. Filing a petition and waiting for approval are the steps in the process. Immediate relative, IR visas. The life's too short for long-distance family drama visa. These visas are intended for immediate family members of U.S. citizens, spouses, single children under 21, and parents, if the sponsoring citizen is at least 21. Fall into this category. The total number of visas granted in this category per year is not capped. Family preference F visas, because your family is the best preference you can have visa. A sentiment you can unpack in therapy, not with your immigration officer. This visa allows certain relatives of lawful permanent residents, green card holders, and more distant relatives of U.S. citizens are eligible for family preference visas. 4 preference groups make up this category. F1 for single sons and daughters of U.S. citizens, F2 for spouses and kids of green card holders, F3 for married U.S. citizen sons and daughters, and F4 for adult U.S. citizen siblings. These visas are limited and the processing times can be very long. Fiancé visas, K. Also known as the visa that brought you the classiest and heartwarming show, 90 Day Fiancé. Americans know how to do entertainment. Whether they understand the fundamentals of a healthy long-term relationship by dangling a visa, that is another question altogether. The K visa is intended for American citizens' fiancé. It allows the fiancé who was born abroad to enter the country with the intention of getting married within 90 days. The foreign-born spouse has the option to apply for status adjustment after marriage in order to become a permanent resident. Diversity Visa Lottery, aka the Green Card Lottery. The U.S. runs an annual diversity visa lottery, allowing individuals from countries with low rates of immigration to the USA to apply for a green card. In 2024, 55,000 individuals will get this visa. So yes, the term lottery is indeed apt. To be eligible for the DV lottery, an individual must be from an eligible country. Individuals from countries with low immigration rates to the United States are eligible to participate in the DV lottery. The list of the countries that are eligible may change from year to year, and I'll note the link down below. Meet education or work experience requirements. Applicants must possess one of 2 qualifications: 2 years of work experience within the last 5 years in an occupation requiring at least 2 years of training or experience, or a high school education or its equivalent, which is defined as successful completion of a 12-year course of formal elementary and secondary education. Submit an entry. Participants are required to submit a submission within the designated registration window. One entry per individual is permitted, and the entry process is often completed online. Employment-based visas. Those looking to work in the United States are eligible for these visas. Professionals, investors, and skilled workers can all be sponsored by employers. The list is remarkably long, so I've only earmarked a smattering. H-1B visa. With this visa, you can make the American dream a 9-to-5 reality. This visa is intended for skilled laborers in specialized fields. It is frequently used for the professionals in fields like science, engineering, and information technology, and requires sponsorship from a U.S. employer. Note, this visa is not a direct to permanent residency option. L1 visa. Why not move up the career ladder while simultaneously moving across continents? Multinational corporations can transfer employees from a foreign office to the U.S. office with the help of L1 visas, which are intended for the intercompany transferees. There are two subcategories: L1B workers with specialized knowledge, and L1A for managers and executives. While having an L1 visa, one can still become a citizen of the United States, but citizenship is not a direct result of the L1 visa. The O visa. The O visa's name honestly feels like a terrible reference to the show Selling Sunset, which is a type of trash TV America has utterly excelled in, and that I, for one, thoroughly enjoy with a glass of wine. Those with exceptional talent or accomplishments in the arts, sciences, business, education, or athletics are eligible for the O visa. It has subcategories such as 01A for people with exceptional talent in the arts, business, education, or sciences, and 01B for people in the sciences. The O visa is a temporary, non-immigrant visa. It is typically granted for an initial period and can be extended, but it does not lead directly to permanent residency or U.S. citizenship. The EB-5 visa program allows investors to immigrate if they invest a substantial amount of money in a new commercial enterprise that creates jobs, aka the pay your way into the country method, costing approximately a cool $800,000 US and taking 5 years of legal residence in the country. They might as well call it the hella rich visa. Refugee and Asylee status. Refugees and those who are granted asylum may apply for protection in the United States on the grounds of persecution that they've experienced in their home countries. Asylum seekers submit their application from within the country, while refugees do so from outside. Once in a while, I see people post, "Can I apply for asylum?" when they're not under actual persecution. The answer is no, you can't. Feeling persecuted is different than being actually persecuted. Student visas, F and M. Individuals coming to the U.S. for academic or vocational studies can apply for student visas. The F visa is for academic studies, while the M visa is for vocational programs. There are various steps in the process from a student visa, F1 or M1, to U.S. citizenship. Students initially enter the country to pursue academic or vocational studies under the M or F visa, which is usually valid for the length of the student's course of study. F1 students have the option to participate in occupational practical training, OPT, thereafter graduation, which allows them to work in their field of study and obtain useful real-world experience. OPT acts as a transitional program, easing the transfer to other visa categories like H-1B or 0B visas based on employment offers and qualifications. People who look into employment-based visa categories may eventually be able to obtain an EB-2 or EB-3 employment-based immigrant visa, which will grant them permanent residency. Path to citizenship. After becoming a permanent resident, individuals can apply for U.S. citizenship through naturalization, which typically involves a waiting period and a citizenship test. The entire process to become a U.S. citizen as an immigrant can take several years, starting from the time you become a lawful permanent resident. The timeline can vary based on individual circumstances and immigration categories, but here is the general process. Eligibility for naturalization. To apply for naturalization, the process of attaining U.S. citizenship, you must fulfill specific qualifying requirements. In general, you need to meet certain requirements and have been a permanent resident for at least 5 years or 3 years if you're married to a citizen of the U.S. of A. Filing Form N-400. To apply for naturalization, send Form N-400 to U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services, USCIS, including the necessary paperwork and payments. Biometric appointments. Attend a biometrics appointment to provide fingerprints, photographs, and other information for a background check. Interview and English test. Attend an interview with USCIS. Your knowledge of English American history and government will be assessed. Oath of Allegiance. If your application is approved, you will be scheduled to attend a naturalization ceremony where you take the oath of allegiance to become a US citizen. Congratulations, you are now American. The gist. As you can see, Canada and the US have their unique immigration process, and the choice between the two often depends on an individual's qualifications, employment, family ties, and personal preferences. Immigration to Canada is generally easier than in the US, in the sense that Canada has a higher proportion of immigration targets relative to the existing population. In 2024, Canada hopes to welcome 485,000 new permanent residents, which is roughly 1.2 of the country's population as of October 2023. By contrast, America added approximately 1,600,000 new immigrants in 2023, which represents less than 0.5% of the country's population. So just because that's a larger absolute number doesn't mean you have a higher chance of success, nor does it mean the process is less complicated. If you are a highly sought after, skilled professional, you will also have a higher chance of being able to obtain visas to either country. Questions to ask yourself.
So I end all the chapters of my book with a set of questions for you to figure out which option actually best suits you. So you could either buy the book, linked down below, or fill out the form and I will send you the questions for this chapter because I'm really nice that way. Next, let's dive into Canada versus USA's post-secondary education system.